From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. And tonight, a special report. Nuclear weapons, nuclear worries. Roadblocks to the Reagan arms buildup.
Good evening. The Space Agency has confirmed that the shuttle will be brought down 3 days ahead of schedule. The reason? Failure in one of the spacecraft's 3 fuel cells. Columbia has been ordered to land at Edwards Air Force Base in California tomorrow afternoon at 4:22 Eastern Time, weather permitting. Otherwise, a few minutes later at White Sands, New Mexico. One factor influencing what mission officials call a prudent decision to shorten the flight was that astronauts Joe Engle and Dick Truly have accomplished ahead of schedule their major test objectives. Morton Dean has more about this in Houston.
They had known about the strong possibility of a shortened mission since yesterday. And today, as the Columbia's cameras panned around the spacecraft, Engle and Truly did their best to hide their concern. Later, they heard the official word that they would indeed be coming home early. They heard it from astronaut Sally Ride in Mission Control.
First, the bad news. Our plan is that we're running a minimum mission and you'll be coming in tomorrow.
It was ironic that in a mission plagued by delays, the planned early return, and many minor problems, the Columbia crew had difficulty hearing the bad news.
Boy, I'll tell you what, you're garbled and unreadable there, Sally.
Okay, you get to hear the bad news one more time then. We're running a minimum mission and you'll be coming in tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that's not so good.
From the topsy-turvy flight, the topsy-turvy view, the shuttle spends most of the mission flying bottoms up. The mini-mission requires the crewmen to move up some activities and cancel others. The robot arm tested well. It's not only a tool, it's a billboard advertising where it was made, Canada. NASA would give no percentage concerning how many of the experiments planned for a 5-day mission would actually be accomplished. The reason the Columbia is coming back early is safety, even though 2 of the spaceship's 3 fuel cells are supplying all the power it needs.
We began to ask ourselves, is there enough to be gained by continuing the flight that would warrant putting ourselves in a position where subsequent difficulties could either compromise our high priority objectives on entry or perhaps even find ourselves in a further reduced power plant condition?
The answer to that question was no. Joe Engle and Dick Truly are heading home tomorrow. Morton Dean, CBS News, Johnson Space Center, Houston.
CBS News live coverage of the return of Space Shuttle 2 will begin tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern Time.
What do hospitals use for relief of constipation? 9 out of 10 hospitals use gentle, dependable milk of magnesia. That's what comes in this bottle of Phillips. Most doctors agree milk of magnesia is gentler than the ingredient in both these laxatives, and unlike bulk laxatives that can take days to work, Phillips works dependably, usually overnight. Remember, 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia. So get Phillips regular mint or convenient mint tablets.
Would your kid like to get behind the wheel of a 10-ton truck? This comes mighty close. US 1 Electric Trucking. 2 tough, hard-working trucks that he controls. Load the truck, then move out down the highway. Slow down, shift into reverse, and dump them. Then fill up the gravel truck, load those logs, get that truck rolling, and let her go. Loadin', haulin', dumpin'. US 1 Electric Trucking for your kid from Tyco, of course.
Already shocked by the David Stockman incident, the White House took another joke today. This time, the cause was National Security Advisor Richard Allen. Leslie Stahl has that story.
Friday the 13th, another day of damage control at the White House. Today's case, Richard Allen, who only 2 weeks ago was called into the Oval Office and told to stop his open bickering with Alexander Haig. But now, says the press in Japan, a top official identified by the White House as Allen is under investigation for accepting illegal payments. The White House said it has concluded there was no wrongdoing. The Justice Department says, though, that the case is still under investigation. The White House has explained that the case involved Allen's acceptance last January of an envelope with $1,000 in cash that was apparently intended for Mrs. Reagan. According to Allen, he received the money as an honorarium from the Japanese magazine Housewife's Friend after their interview with Mrs. Reagan in Washington. Allen accepted the money, even though White House ethics rules prohibit that, because, he says, it was customary in Japan and he didn't want to embarrass the Japanese journalists. Allen says he put the money in his office safe and then forgot about it for 8 months until it was discovered by another official and reported to the FBI. The case is now in the hands of the Attorney General, who must decide if the facts require the appointment of a special prosecutor. But White House officials try to minimize the case, one saying it was something Dick merely overlooked. And Allen told reporters, from front to back, it's as innocent as it seems.
As far as I know, there is no evidence of any wrongdoing. You're completely satisfied? I said on the basis of all that I know. He stays on the job. Basis of what I know, yes.
Allen has been accused of wrongdoing before. There were allegations he used his connections in the Nixon White House to get lucrative consulting contracts. The fear in this White House is that these incidents, David Stockman's offer to resign yesterday, the Allen charges today, will lead to an impression of a White House that's spending most of its time and energy answering charges about its top officials. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
Senate Republican leader Howard Baker says he thinks President Reagan's budget director, David Stockman, may yet be forced to resign. Stockman offered his resignation this week, but Mr. Reagan refused to accept it. Baker says Stockman's alleged admission in Atlantic Monthly magazine, quote, damaged himself and damaged the president's economic program. Stockman continues to insist that he never gave deliberately misleading figures to Congress or the American people. He is quoted in the magazine as admitting that he and the Reagan administration did just that. The Pentagon announced today that Admiral Hyman Rickover, at 81, the nation's oldest active military officer, will be retired January 31st. President Reagan approved the resignation, which Rickover had been opposing. The president then asked the admiral to serve as a White House advisor on nuclear science. Rickover had no immediate comment.
Over 100 years ago at the International Flower Fair, America's #1 flower won its name, gold medal. Taste 100 years of baking success.
Taste the success of 100 years. Taste the success of joyful tears. Taste the success of baking pride and open wide. Taste the success of 100 years. Feel the confidence of all those years, gold medal.
For your baking success.
For 5 years, Juan Valdez nurtures the coffee tree until it bears fruit. And once the tree matures, Juan must return to it day after day to pick the beans by hand at a moment of perfect ripeness. With great care, after 1 year's time, the tree will give 2,000 beans. And 2,000 beans is just 1 pound of pure Colombian coffee. It is no wonder Americans think it is the best coffee in the world. It is the richest.
The government said today that the nation's industrial production fell 1.5% in October, its sharpest drop in 18 months. The Federal Reserve Board said that completed the first 3-month string of factory production declines since last year's recession. And a private analyst put it bluntly, saying the figures are a real indication that the economy is falling out of bed. Ray Brady outlines the problem.
The big production drops are still coming in building materials for homes and in automobiles. But there are also drops in the output of big-ticket consumer items, such as appliances, as well as in business and farm equipment. Altogether, economists say, this is the biggest monthly production decline since last year's recession. And indications are this year's recession will be even worse.
One of the characteristics of this recession is that it is going to hit a lot more people's pocketbooks, a lot more people's livelihoods than last year's experience, and consequently for the average individual, this will be a much more severe recession than last year.
All of these things you can see happening in the figures as they're being reported. But at the same time, I offer a ray of hope that in the first quarter of 1982 will be less down than this particular quarter, and by the second quarter of 1982 we'll be pulling out of this.
Still, right now, there's a problem for the economy. Rising stocks of goods already manufactured but not sold. Dealers like to have a 60-day supply of cars on hand. Instead, they've had an unwieldy 81-day supply unsold. And other unsold goods are piling up in housewares, furniture, and similar items. They're piling up not just in stores, but in factories as well. All this means Americans could see bargain sales and discounts even during the Christmas selling season. That's good for consumers, but it also means factories won't be getting orders for more goods, and that could mean still more layoffs and higher unemployment. Ray Brady, CBS News, New York.
For the first time ever, the Commerce Department today announced a major investigation of foreign steel producers who may be unfairly subsidizing steel exports to this country. Don Webster has that story.
The complaint charges that 5 countries, South Africa, Romania, France, Belgium, and Brazil, are illegally dumping steel in the United States. That is, selling it here for less than it costs to make. American steelmakers say that's because the foreign steel mills are either government-owned or government-subsidized, and making a profit is not the principal goal.
They lose, those government plants, $1 billion and a half dollars a year. At the end of the year, why the Chancellor of the Exchequer gets out his checkbook, gives them a nice little influx of additional capital. In this country, if we did that, we'd go broke in a year.
U.S. Steel thinks the government didn't go far enough and in 3 weeks plans to file its own suit charging 9 countries with dumping. A spokesman for imported steel denies there is dumping. He says American steelmakers are inefficient.
Steel imports are the result and not the cause of the domestic mills' problems.
About a quarter of the steel sold in this country is now imported, and that doesn't include such things as the steel in a Japanese car, which comes in as a finished product. Steel analysts point out part of the industry's problem is not imports, but the high cost of labor and low productivity.
Dumped imports are harmful, but almost 40% of the cost of making steel in the U.S. is labor. The wage rates in the U.S. steel industry are the highest of any American industry, yet the productivity growth has been among the lowest.
Reduced demand has caused massive layoffs in the steel business, 25,000 out of work in just the Gary, Indiana area alone. What will you do?
I don't know. I'm going to have to do something. Probably get a babysitting job or something, because this is really terrible.
If those countries are found guilty of dumping, the government will raise the duty on imported steel. That should make American steel more competitive. Don Webster, CBS News, Chicago.
The Federal Trade Commission today asked Mobil and Marathon Oil for more information on the proposed $5 billion merger of those 2 companies. The action temporarily bars Mobil from buying any Marathon stock. In Columbus, Ohio, Attorney General William Brown filed suit to stop Mobil's takeover of Marathon on grounds it would violate Ohio antitrust laws by stifling competition in gasoline sales. Mobil disclosed today it may follow Exxon's lead and pull out of Libya because of unsettled relations with that country. A Mobil spokesman said the company has talked with the Libyan government about shutting down Mobil's 2 crude oil operations there. Mobil has about 100 American employees and dependents in Libya. Exxon announced last night that it is closing its Libyan operations. Other American oil companies still in Libya are Marathon, Amerada Hess, Conoco, and Occidental Petroleum. Marathon said today its decision whether to stay or go is made on a, quote, day-to-day basis. There was a surprise development at the trial today of former Green Beret Eugene Tafolla. He is charged with the attempted murder of a Libyan dissident in Fort Collins, Colorado. An eyewitness to that shooting testified that Tafolla was not the gunman. Earlier, Tafolla's lawyer had said that the former soldier did shoot the dissident, but in self-defense.
Susan, I can't sleep with this darn itch.
Neither can I with all your squirming.
Here, try my new Prep Court. It's a special hydrocortisone cream formula.
Prep Court?
It's something new from Preparation H.
Prep Court can often give fast temporary relief from external itch associated with hemorrhoids.
Hydrocortisone cream. Great idea. I'll try it. Hey, the itch is gone.
Now I can get some sleep.
New Prep Court hydrocortisone cream. Fast relief from itch.
Some things are too good to keep to yourself, like the JCPenney pre-holiday sale, with savings on Motion Skirt, the Bow Blouse, and Motion Pant. keep saving on denim jeans for men and flannel shirts, plus 30% off kids' outerwear. For keeping house, these bath towels are 25% off, and save $9 on this electric blanket. The fabulous pre-holiday sale.
Keep it up, JCPenney.
The leader of southern Lebanon's Christian militia, which is allied with Israel, said today that the state of war has returned, that the 4-month-old ceasefire with Palestinian guerrillas is over. The truce's end was announced by Major Saeed Had on Israeli television shortly after a landmine killed 3 of his militiamen, which Had said was the Palestinians' 38th ceasefire violation. A former SALT negotiator today urged the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to make sure that Reagan administration arms policies aimed at preventing a nuclear war don't provoke one. Gerard C. Smith, chief U.S. negotiator of the first Strategic Arms Limitations Treaty with the Soviet Union, said, and I quote, "There is a crossover point where the potential of nuclear forces may provoke nuclear war rather than discourage it," unquote. A similar warning was sounded earlier this week by Paul Warnke, President Carter's top SALT II negotiator. Officials today reported a small quantity of plutonium missing from the Savannah River nuclear weapons facility. They said it only could be used for research and poses no significant health risk. But the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has estimated that more than 8,000 pounds of radioactive substances used in making nuclear weapons are unaccounted for. Bob Schieffer has been looking into this country's nuclear weapons industry. He finds that security is only one of many problems plaguing it.
Let the exercise begin.
Here's a side of the new nuclear weapons buildup you don't often see. These men and women aren't using them, just learning how to guard them. They guard Rocky Flats, Colorado, a key facility in the government's seldom publicized nuclear weapons manufacturing complex. The threat of terrorism in recent years has forced plant managers to spend more and more on security. MX has hogged the headlines, but there's been virtually no discussion of the other problems that must be overcome to build all those new warheads. Security is no small part of it.
Nobody's tried to break in, but we're concerned about, is there somebody going to try and do that? You don't find a police force anywhere, New York or Los Angeles or anyplace else that has their own armored personnel carriers. But we take the business seriously. There is significant amounts of weapons-grade plutonium at this plant site. And so we've got to have the kind of force we've got. It's one of the largest in Colorado, believe it or not.
This is what every terrorist wants. Weapons-grade plutonium-239, the most dangerous substance in the world, the key ingredient of nuclear weapons. This batch is just out of the reactor oven and is curing under 30 feet of water at Savannah River, South Carolina. The new Reagan buildup will require the United States to step up plutonium production 70% over the next 4 years. And because of the way bombs are made, it must constantly be hauled across the country in heavily guarded, specially built trucks like this one. The trucks bring the plutonium here, Rocky Flats, Colorado. This is the most sophisticated machine shop in the world. It's where plutonium is cut into the proper size and shape to fit into the warheads. Rocky Flats and Savannah River are just 2 parts of the nuclear weapons building complex, much of which is 30 years old. The triggering components are made at Pinellas, Florida. At Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the uranium is processed. Detonators are assembled near Dayton, Ohio. Kansas City's plant produces the plastic and electronics, and the warheads are finally assembled at a World War II munitions plant in Amarillo. All the plants are run for the government by private contractors. Rockwell International operates this one at Rocky Flats. Curiously, it is a system with no backups. If Rocky Flats goes down, for example, the whole process could come to a halt.
Although redundancy in the system perhaps would be worthwhile in some areas, we really couldn't afford to have a completely redundant system.
Officials say the plants are already operating at 100% capacity, but the new buildup means additional strain on the system. 3 reactors like this one are now turning out weapons-grade plutonium. 2 more will be added. The Department of Energy is asking $5 billion, a 37% increase in its weapons building budget next year, and additional increases will be needed in the coming years. But even with all that, officials say filling the requests for more and more weapons will not be easy.
Obviously, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. We only have so much absolute capacity. But from what we see today that we've been asked to do, I feel that we'll be able to meet the requirement.
Political problems may prove more serious than the financial crunch. The government argues the plants are safe, but some who live near them don't agree.
We are concerned because we feel that those bombs are, even though they're never used, even the production of them is a danger to the health and safety of us, we who live in Colorado. And the populace is, in a sense, a guinea pig, even though we never have a nuclear war. We are feeling the same effects.
At the final assembly plant near Amarillo, the area's influential Catholic bishop is leading the opposition, and he has called on plant workers to quit their jobs on moral grounds.
I don't know of any individual who resigned out there as a result of the suggestion that I made, because they really do believe in what they're doing. I think it's a course that will lead to destruction of everyone.
But even though the new weapons buildup is bringing with it new political problems and new worry about plant security, and while the budget crunch will make new strains on a manufacturing system already operating at near capacity, it is the permanent disposal of nuclear waste that remains the most perplexing problem of all. Boxcars are already required to haul off the nuclear waste at Rocky Flats, and the stepped-up production will mean more of it. This waste is being temporarily buried in Idaho, but weapons manufacturing has generated 10 times more waste than the plants that make nuclear power for civilian use, and scientists are still looking for a permanent way to dispose of it. At Savannah River, where they have stored 23 million gallons of waste in tanks, the government is planning a $1 billion plant to solidify some of it into glass. But even after the plant is operational in 1989, it will take 13 years just to process what is already accumulated. And even then, a place must still be found to store and cool it, since it will still be radioactive, some of it for as long as 12,000 years. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
No, you're not too young for Geritol. Each Geritol tablet is a special combination of potent amounts of iron and lots of important vitamins.
You're not too young for Geritol.
Tonight, in America, millions of adults will have trouble falling asleep. And tonight, more of these people will count on Sominex than any other sleep aid. At times like these, Sominex helps you feel drowsy, so you get to sleep in minutes. Next time sleep escapes you, trust in Sominex for the sleep you need. Sominex, it's simply faster.
Last evening, we reported a story from the small village of Twyford, England, where the local pub owner went to court trying to silence church bells he said kept him awake. Well, today, a county court judge ruled that century-old tradition is more important than sleep, and said that the bells of St. Mary's may go on ringing around the clock. 4 chimes on the quarter hour, 8 on the half, 12 on the three-quarter, and 18 on the hour, plus the number of each hour. The judge said the bells are mellow and attractive. The pub owner had no comment. 4 men and a stowaway named Lady Luck rode the balloon Double Eagle 5, 6,000 miles from Japan to California, the first ever lighter-than-air crossing of the Pacific. The 4 adventurers were lifted by helicopter today from the mountain ridge near Covella, where they crash-landed. Ben Abruzzo, the captain, said the balloon was falling apart the last 5 miles. When the gondola was cut loose, it fell 40 feet. But fortunately, no one was hurt much. Well, you've heard about spin-offs from the space program, from major advances like communications and weather satellites to such creature comforts as an orange drink and Teflon-coated frying pans. And as Charles Osgood reports, the space program gave Mary Ann Sear what might be called a jewel of an idea.
Roger, copy. PC lesson 50.
Confirm good solid rocket booster separation.
While the astronauts are up there circling in space, their heart rates, body temperatures, and other data are being monitored at Mission Control in Houston. It was this sort of thing on a previous flight that gave jewelry designer Mary Ann Shear a brainstorm while she was making a costume for Miss Ohio in the Miss World contest.
While I was making the belt, I was also watching the astronauts being monitored on TV
by scientists, and it occurred to me, you know, that why can't we right here do the same thing?
So she developed what she calls body assist jewelry. A ring that's a magnifying glass. A bracelet that reads your pulse and signals when something's wrong. A necklace that tracks your heartbeat on a liquid crystal screen in pulsating color. A pendant that monitors the air quality for people with breathing problems.
The circuitry picks up bad air conditions and will alert you through a buzzer down here, open up the door, and then you have 10 minutes of oxygen and an oxygen mask.
One of Mrs. Shear's ideas came when she met a sculptress who was a tracheotomy patient with a tube in her throat.
And I asked her if she wouldn't like me to decorate it.
Harry Brickell is a New York construction supervisor who had a similar operation.
We're on the subway, I'm teaching, working, talking with people. For some reason it becomes the focal point and not the issue or myself.
So now he wears one of Marianne Shear's necklaces, and it makes all the difference in the world.
I have become Harry again as opposed to a throat with Harry attached.
Once she started thinking along these lines, Marianne Shear came up with ideas that would apply to just about anybody. A gizmo for your glasses, so that should you nod off while driving, an alarm would wake you right up again. A belt that will nag at you if your posture becomes bad.
A necklace that rates your breath on a scale from 1 to 10. And a smoke detector that gently chides smokers in your vicinity by playing a little tune. Smoke gets in your eyes. All these and others are prototypes, not yet on the mass market. They'll wind up much smaller and relatively inexpensive. Manufacturers and the government are interested, but no grants or public monies involved here at all. They're just a few ideas that, when you think of it, are spin-offs from the space program. Hardware, yes, but hardware with a heart. Charles Osgood, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Friday. Until tomorrow afternoon, when we'll be covering live the Space Shuttle landing. Dan Rather, CBS News, New York. Hope you have a good weekend.
He was the kind of a guy who didn't expect much from today's small cars, just practicality, nothing more. Then he saw the 1982 Oldsmobile Omega and realized he'd been expecting too little. This four-cylinder, front-wheel drive Olds Omega had style. He could imagine the luxury inside, the smooth, quiet ride. Olds Omega, he smiled. Even today, there's still room to do it with style.
Know what? For intestinal gas pains and pressure, I found these Gas X tablets so much better.
Watch. Intestinal gas bubbles are much like bubbles in beer. Add the leading antacid here, Gas X here, and stir. 1 minute later, antacid shows little change, but Gas X breaks the gas bubbles. They're almost gone.
For intestinal gas pains and pressure after meals, get medically proven relief. Gas X.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. This is CBS.
And this was the last day of school in Humphreys County. They're out of money there. And a high school coach was stabbed today. Those stories and more coming up next on Eyewitness News. Stay tuned.
Just in time for the holidays. Irwin Furniture in Madison offers outstanding savings on beautiful Pennsylvania house furniture. We are clearing out our entire inventory to make room for the opening of our exciting new Pennsylvania House Collectors Gallery. Finely crafted Pennsylvania House is always a good value, but at these dramatically reduced prices, it's an extraordinary opportunity. You can afford